get this started. Hey everybody, it's Kate Milliken and I am here on another 2-on-1, and I am thrilled to actually be introducing my new co-host, Joseph Fusaro. Joseph is a rampant MyCounterpane user, and he's an author, he's a poet. You can see his work at unreadletters.com. Joseph, I am so psyched to have you in this enormous position of stature and power. I mean, it just must feel amazing.
I mean, this is probably the biggest thing that I've done so far in my career, but thank you very much for having me back on the show. I'm glad I made it up to co-host now.
You did, and we'll have to figure out who's Howard Stern and who's Robin Quivers, but I'm sure that will
See,
come.
I was thinking Letterman and
Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
It'll be very interesting to hear how it all works out. So with us is Jeff Fink, who is the founder of Go Fetch Wellness. Jeff has actually been living with severe anxiety, untreatable depression or treatment-resistant depression, a cornucopia of interesting health issues, which he will dive into here. And actually, I am lucky enough to say that I have not met Jeff directly, but actually, Joseph, you brought Jeff to this show, and I'd love to find out why.
Well, actually, I met Jeff through Kristen when we interviewed Kristen, and then and then I knew Jeff through Marissa Panay. Actually, we actually share a little corner of her website together, I was interested in Jeff immediately because what he does is he works with service dogs, and he has a golden retriever named Earl who looks amazing. And actually, I recently lost my golden retriever a couple months ago. So he was 15 years old. And I just know that when I was suffering with mental illness, he was my go-to. Like, he was the person or the dog. But he was someone that was there for me when I really had nobody. And it just, what Jeff is doing really interests me with the service dogs.
Jeff, do you want to tell us a little bit about Go Fetch Wellness?
Yeah, I would love to. First, thanks for having me on the show. And I hope to meet both of you all one day. I know I'm going to meet Joe we're going to be up at the NAMI New York State Education Conference. And I guess it's around the corner here in November.
Yeah, November, yeah.
And Marissa will be there as well. She was the first to design our logo, which later changed, but I wanted to let her know that, her design meant a lot to me, and met her and heard her story along the way. So Go Fetch Wellness, it was set up basically out of my experience in getting a golden retriever, getting a dog, and deciding to train him as a service dog for me. So I didn't really have any clue that a dog would be my main ticket to wellness. I had, as we've talked about, the diagnoses I use or I talk about are severe depression, treatment-resistant depression, and anxiety. But when you go to 22 psychiatrists in your life and you're not getting better, they'll each give you a different diagnosis. Oh, well, it's not this, it's bipolar, it's OCD, it's trauma, I mean, whatever. And so I don't really like to focus on the diagnosis piece. I like to focus on kind of what next and, where to go from here. Because if you focus on the diagnosis and the illness and you read the statistics, they're not very favorable. You're going to be sick. You're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. Life is not going to be that enjoyable. And that's really not how it has to be. And I think that's why we're here sharing, our stories and having others share their stories on MyCounterpane. And so when I got Earl, Earl is my dog's name. He's 5 years old now. I got him at 2 months. I said, I was desperate. I had tried so many things. I went through 70 combinations of medications. That's 32 individual medication trials, which is...
I just want to say that actually, in terms of feeling desperate, not only on the meds, that, you are part of a documentary, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where I got to actually see you talk with your father about, you felt so desperate that you asked your father to take you to a place where you could end your own life.
Yeah, that was, unfortunately, that wasn't just a one-time thing. When I was sick, you know, it would last an average of 2 years of bedridden depression. So during that time and each subsequent sickness, there's probably been 4 2-year periods in my adult life. So that's 8 years pretty much bedridden with sickness. There's a lot of thoughts of wanting to take your life, or wanting life to end, or wanting to get a disease that ends it so you don't have to do that. And really, you know, it takes a tremendous amount of strength to stay in the game and to stay fighting, especially when every time you try a different approach, or you trust in the medical profession, and not saying anything wrong with that. I think there's a place for medications. I still take a medication, so I'm not speaking of that. But what I'm saying is, you lose hope every time something fails. You lose hope. At 25, when I went through electric shock therapy and that didn't work, and that was quote unquote my last resort treatment, I lost hope. And yeah, my dad was with me every step of the way. And if it wasn't for him and my connection with him and my love for him and seeing the fight in him when I had no fight myself, I wouldn't be here today. And I know it's very sad, because I've mentioned that to people, and they've said, you know, I don't have a dad or mom, or our relationship's not good, and I don't have any friends. You know, it's not like I had a ton of friends. I mean, I had one person, which is more than some, but you know, to see him fighting, I just said, you know, I can't leave this world. I can't have him fly me to Switzerland or wherever. I'm not going to name all the places.
He also refused.
And he refused.
Said, I cannot do that for you.
He did. He refused. But he saw, I mean, he understood my pain more than anyone. He saw me hyperventilating. He saw me in and out of the psychiatric hospitals. He went with me to my doctor's appointments, and he saw that it was you know, beating me down. So along the way, someone said, get a dog. I said, I can't care for a dog. I don't eat. I can't leave the house. But when I got Earl at 2 months old, my life changed forever. And it was getting him and caring for him and something outside of myself that made me, you know, it gave me hope. It gave me a sense of purpose. And the reason I started Go Fetch Wellness was when I was training Earl, we do what's called public access training. You're training a service dog to behave appropriately in restaurants and movie theaters. And trust me, I'm not a dog trainer. I was not born and bred to be the dog whisperer. I made a lot of mistakes. Golden Retriever puppies, like many puppies, can be very stubborn. And, you know, so I made some mistakes. But what the point is, people would share with me. They'd say, oh, wow, you that's a psychiatric service dog. What does that mean? You know, and I'd talk to them. I have depression. I have anxiety. And people would open up. So Earl was that bridge between me and my thoughts and stuck in my head and the outside world. And I said, why aren't we doing more in mental health? Why aren't we working with more animals? 70+% of the US population has a pet. So I say animals because it's not always a dog. For some, it's a cat, a guinea pig, a bird, a tarantula.
Whoa, that would give me some scary anxiety. I'm just throwing it out there.
Exactly. Well, so just because a dog, Golden Retriever, isn't for everyone, neither is a tarantula or a snake, which would both give me the same amount of anxiety. But I said, you know, we have therapy dogs. Those are the dogs that people share with others. We see them in nursing homes. We see them, kids reading to them in schools. We see them in hospitals. Why are we just introducing a dog for an hour once a week or once a month, and seeing that person that hasn't opened up in 6 months and they've been in a hospital? Why aren't we building on that? Yeah. To me, it's like going to a psychiatric hospital, finally finding that right medicine cocktail, leaving the hospital, and the doctor is saying, we're going to keep that medicine. You're leaving the hospital now. There's a place for the therapy dogs visiting, and it's really bringing a lot of exposure. But I said, we need to do more. So that's where Go Fetch Wellness was born. And we started working with people individually that were homebound like I was. We started running groups at treatment centers where people would be more motivated to learn about life skills and social skills with a dog there.
Yeah.
But it was learning. It wasn't just here, pet the dog and feel good. It was like, let's figure out animal behavior so we can figure out what's going on with us. Or this dog has anxiety. let's talk about how that might relate to our anxiety. And that was, yeah, that's kind of the inception of Go Fetch Wellness.
Is there a, certainly your story in itself is magnificent because it's so extreme. And, you know, side note, as someone who doesn't directly experience some of the issues that you and Joseph have faced, the amount of compassion I have for what that must have been like, I mean, it's unfathomable to me on how painful that was. So I really love seeing you here today being so articulate. Can you think of an anecdote of someone who has gone through the program and what happened to them that you could tell us?
Sure. I can think of a lot. And Joe or Joseph, do you go by Joseph or is it both?
Whichever one you want. Yeah, whichever. Joe, doesn't really matter.
I'll try to keep it short since I'm officially Jeffrey and I go by Jeff.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, when you were sharing about your golden, and thanks for sharing a longevity story. Most people share with me that their golden got cancer at 3 or 5, and it's just horrible to hear.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
What's his name?
Sorry, I had to. That's Bern.
Bern?
Yeah, Bernie.
And how long was Bernie with you, Joseph?
15 years. But we got him right when I was graduating high school. So I knew I was going to be going away, and it's kind of worked out where I went to college and failed and came home, and like Bernie was there. And then I tried college again, failed, came home. Bernie was there. Then tried working, failed, came home. Bernie was. So it was like, it was kind of like what you were saying with like these 2-year periods. Like I would go into like a year or 2 period of like deep depression. And then like I don't know, I'd get the will somehow to like go back to school or go back to work. And then I would do it without like having a plan, and everything would crumble. But like every time it crumbled, like Bernie was there, you know, and like I remember him climbing up on the couch like every night at 9 o'clock, and, you know, he'd just climb up next to me. So he was really, you know, when I isolated and I wasn't talking to anybody, you know, he was there for me. So
that's
Totally unconditional.
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful to hear. And you're talking about the companionship and reduction of isolation and the non-judgment of Bernie and other dogs. Like, you know, they're not judging. They're not going to talk back and say, well, you shouldn't have gone to college. And I don't look at those. I know the verbiage was failed, but I mean, I look at those as all, I'm sure it wasn't just failure because you just didn't want to do it. It was, you know, you've had some.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, it was serious mental illness at the time. I mean, it was bipolar, and I was treating it as if it was anxiety and depression. So I was taking, you know, controlled substances to get up in the morning, controlled substances to sleep at night. But I had bipolar. So really what I was doing was making my mania and depression worse with the medication that I was taking. And then it would just get to a point where everything would implode. Yeah. But everything that I failed, I attribute to misdiagnosis and medication. And obviously myself, I take full responsibility for it. But like you said, yeah, it wasn't like I was just failing and coming home.
They weren't failures. They were, because I can totally relate to what you say where I was sick, and then, you know, you start to get, it starts to pass whatever the reason, it's a medication or it's time, you start to get that energy, and, you know, you've been like not functional for a while. So you're ready to go out and do, and I did the same thing. If I look at the course of my adult life, it was the same thing, back to work or trying to go back to school or doing whatever. And then realizing, you know, I'm not making sound decisions, but I was just trying to kind of move forward faster because you just want to run from that darkness. And
like you said, I moved a lot too. I tried to run from it. And I think you said in the documentary that it's going to follow you.
Yeah. And I even had people tell me, you know, this is, you can move geographical locations. And I think there can still be some locations that can be better than others for people, but it does follow you, and so it's not about moving, and everything is really stays with you because it's in your brain and in your anatomy.
Yeah.
So I forgot where.
Well, I was going to say we will hear another case study, but although Joseph has been an amazing one in himself, but you know, one of the things I do know in terms of moving for you also is going outside. That was something that kind of worked as an anchor for you to kind of start to heal.
And
And
for
Earl,
me,
I would, yes. And I would
yeah,
assume that Earl was a big part of that.
sure. I mean, you know, that's a big reason my focus is primarily on dogs and helping place dogs with people, because it is kind of hard to get your rat or your guinea pig to take them out on a 4-mile walk. They probably would need to go in the backpack or something and get a little tired.
Or in the inside of your bra, you know, nestled
Yeah.
up.
If
Well,
you have a bra,
yeah, I was
No,
going to
that's
say,
a
I don't
whole
know
other
about
story
that.
for the two of you.
yeah.
I don't want to go
But
there.
no, Earl, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I've now got, are you guys there?
Yes.
Yes.
Froze on my end.
Okay. Are you there?
Are we there?
Hi.
We hear you.
You appear that you did froze. It's okay. So we can pause the recording.
Oh, wait.
There you are. Okay.
We're back.
So let me just
We're
put a
back.
pickup. Okay, pickup alley right here. So Joseph, why don't you start here with a question?
And did
Okay.
you want me to, I mean, I can also, I've got a few stories, short stories. So if we want to get back to that, just ask again and I'll answer. I just figured we'd use the co-host's story as one of many stories out
Yeah, sure. So, all right, why don't I'll lead this question so that I can get your answer on this case study, and then Joseph, you take it. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. So, Jeff, so give me a case study or two of some of the people you've helped.
So there's several people that, you know, I feel that have benefited from my helping them along their path, whether it's introducing them to the human-animal connection, whether it's helping them get their own dog, helping them find trainers to train their dog. My focus isn't on service dog placement. I realize that placing service dogs like what Earl is very time-consuming and costly. And a lot of people, like Joe has shared, can benefit from getting the right pet at the right time for the right reason. It doesn't have to be a service dog that goes with them everywhere. You can build your life around the dog and go to the dog parks and coffee shops and sit on the deck and really have that bond just the same. So one person that stands out, she was living in an apartment and unable to function. Her depression was so bad, she wasn't leaving. It's probably been over a year since she'd gotten out of the apartment. Very smart person, very artistic, and made crafts and just did all types of stuff, but wasn't able to leave. It was social anxiety, depression. I started working with her. I brought Earl over to her apartment, and this was in New York City. And it must have been the third session where I went over there. And when I went over, I'm not talking like this and do this, do that, giving advice. I'm really meeting someone where they're at. So where she was at was just kind of sitting, processing, petting Earl, going through the motions, crying. And I said, the goal of our sessions is to try to get us out. And, Earl's there, and I'm there with you. We'll walk together. And, she's like, I just don't think that's going to happen. And I said, all right. So third session, I get there and it's freezing outside. It was actually one of these sessions and I'm like, I hope we're staying inside.
Yeah.
She's dressed to go right when I get to the door, coat on, everything. She's like, let's go walk. And we walked, and she must have been a regular New Yorker, because her walking, I thought I was a fast walker. We walked, we spent 2 hours walking.
Wow. And
each session after that, she was ready to go. We walked outside. That her healing happened so fast that, now she's going to the grocery store. She's making meals. She used to cook. She was then able to go to her place, which is upstate New York, and start sorting through all the things. Because when you're in this mindset, everything is overwhelming. I've got papers to go through. I've got to do this. It's like you take on every project at once. You don't just take on little things. And I said, let's just deal with that when you're feeling better. Now she ended up getting a little small dog she rescued. Didn't want a dog as big as Earl. And they're living together in her house, and she's been doing great ever since. And it was like, had someone not come over there with a dog, something that simple, she might have still been there today. And it's stories like that make me feel like, there are others out there. And certainly when people share stories like Joe shared, and whenever I speak and people will share their stories of how their dogs saved them, whether it's from more mental health or more addiction. A lot of work in the addiction community where, you know, these animals are helping fill that void and helping connect people to different people, places, and things. And so it's incredible. I have other stories to share, but for sake of time, we can.
That's
No, I
great.
agree. I think it's all about, with addiction and mental illness, is redirecting the energy from the depression, from the addiction, into something that, you know, like some might say that, like, I'm addicted to walking now, or I'm addicted to meditating. But you know what? I'd much rather be addicted to walking and meditating than prescription meds, or just sitting in my room being addicted to thinking about my depression, because that's what ultimately happens is you get depressed and then you spend all of your time thinking about it and trying to figure it out, when really you just need to focus on something else. And it sounds like that's what the service dog or the support dog does.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone who's watching this actually goes to Jeff's website, you want to get the link, Jeff?
So it's just gofetchwellness.com. I don't think you have to say www anymore.
No,
That
I don't
dates
either.
me. That
I think we're good. If you go to gofetchwellness.com right now, there's not only a beautiful shot of Earl, it's amazing, but also there is a link to a documentary that Jeff is featured in called Beyond Silence. And this was put together, executive produced by Demi Lovato. And it's like a half-an-hour film, and it's incredibly moving. It kind of profiles 3 people who are living with mental illness, and I was really impressed by it. But one of the people in the documentary is a man named Lloyd Hale, and one of the things he says in his interpretation of his own progression to wellness is, he says, recovery is in the details. And I really love this, because having talked to Joseph and learned so much from this community, this whole idea of taking care of yourself. Joseph, or you guys, either one of you want to comment on that?
I mean, I've said this before, is that self-care is my number one priority over a job, over a relationship, over anything, because if I'm not healthy, then I'm no good to anybody else. And one of the things I noticed that a lot of people that I work with have trouble with is, you know, like, some people are over confident in their abilities, but I think when you have depression, you have zero confidence in your abilities. So what you need to do is at least be confident in your ability to take care of yourself. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. I think a lot of people with depression think like, oh, well, if I do something for myself, like, I don't deserve it. But like, you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah, certainly. And for me, self-care as well is something where and it's why I won't, you know, I'm not going to ever work a 70-hour work week. And if I speak somewhere and I know I'm going to be traveling, my self-care could look like there's always going to be a hike or a walk with Earl. So really having him there helps me, because I'm focusing on his self-care, even though he's fine sleeping all day. If he, you know,
Right.
can be lazy. But by focusing on him, I'm luckily I'm not focused on myself, which I spent a long time. And like you said, when you're depressed, you're constantly trying to, how is this ever going to change? And I think that for those out there that are not in a good state now, whether it's depression, a physical illness, or whatever, and you can't really see the light, you know, just know that taking care of yourself may look like that day taking a shower, maybe just brushing your teeth, maybe having more than 1 cup of water or something. It doesn't have to look like I'm eating organic, I'm running a marathon.
Right.
You know, I have 1 million friends. I used to read research. It says, well, if you don't have a huge supportive group of friends, you're going to die young. And if you have this, you're going to get this. And it's like, I mean, I'm like, where's the research saying, well, what if you're in that situation? How do you get out of it? And how do you just live? And I think that for people out there, you might not know, you know, whether it's poetry, art, writing, a dog, exercise, you know, any number of things that help us take care of ourselves. Could be a combination of them, or it could be something you never even knew existed. And just by talking to someone and sharing with them, they say, well, have you tried energy work, or have you tried acupuncture? And it's something like that that ends up meditation. That's your main ticket. And so I say that because I had no idea, like I said in the beginning, that a dog could do so much for my brain. No one told me that he could help me as much as a anxiety medication, for example. So
do you remember the moment, and we'll pan to him in a second, but do you remember the moment, you know, you get this puppy and he's 2 months old, where you actually realized that he was going to serve as an anchor towards your wellness? Do you remember that moment where you were like, wow, I feel better?
You know, I wish I could say it was a moment. Something that I don't always share is when he was a puppy, I ended up getting sick. I probably, once again, I'd kind of moved. I was in Colorado, moved to Chattanooga from Atlanta, Georgia, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I fell sick, and I called my dad, desperate. I said, you know, and while I'm sick, I'm also still having to care for him. So unlike previous sicknesses where I wouldn't leave bed, you know, he's going to cry, he's going to have an accident, I got to take him out. And during those times of sickness, I had moments where every time I took him out, even if it was late in the day for a hike, I felt a little better. I felt like that glimmer of hope to take me to the next day, even though the next day may have started over like a Groundhog Day kind of effect where I'm back, I'm desperate, I don't want to live. But I told my dad, I said, come get Earl. This is it for me. And my dad recognized at that point, he's not going to get Earl, because had he gotten Earl, you know, now Earl was that thing that was keeping me around. And so another reason why I like to work with people and make sure they're ready and they have a plan. If they have to go to a hospital, where's their dog going to go, and not just get the dog like I did and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
Your dad is a total badass. I'm just throwing it out there.
He's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. I wish he would age in reverse, but you know, we'll hope he's around for many, many more years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's see Earl. Can you pan so we can take a look at him?
Hey, Earl.
Wow. He is gorgeous.
Can you see him?
Yeah. Lift the screen up a little bit more. There you go.
Yep,
Perfect. You got a great shot.
Wow.
And look at how he responded to you. That is amazing.
There's Earl. I put his bed out. There's his bed, but he's like most dogs. They never seem to like their bed, or what, you know, you can spend a fortune on their bed and then they're on the hardwood floor.
Yeah,
right.
That was Bern. Never liked a bed.
Dude, that Earl just wants to make sure that you know that, you know, he's not 100% easy. He's got to give you a little intrigue. If
Earl was like what most people think service dogs are like, if Earl was like a robot, he wouldn't have done the same things for getting out of my head. If I didn't have to watch him on a hike in Chattanooga, because there was horses on this hike, and he'd run up and roll in horse poop or eat the horse poop as a puppy. He'd just be covered in poop. So for me, if he had been just perfect, like I would have been probably stuck in my thoughts still and be like, oh, you know, am I doing the right job? And instead I'm dealing with him, you know, running off into the sunset with a mouth full of poop. Sorry, all this poop conversation, but
yeah. Well, we like to keep it real here on MyCounterpane, so that's all good.
Real.
So let me close with one question. If there's somebody out there, and Joseph, of course, if you have something too, if there's somebody out there that's, you know, if I try to imagine myself in a vulnerable place, wondering if I had the ability to actually have a dog, because you were right on the precipice, right? Like you're so debilitated, there's no way you could take care of a dog, but yet you did. What would you say to that person who is wondering if they were right to take this on?
So I'd say, you know, let's learn more about you. Let's learn more about your challenges and how an animal may play a role. And then, you know, let's interact with someone else that has a dog. You know, see if you like big dogs, small dogs. If you don't like dogs, maybe you like cats, or maybe you want to start with something smaller, like set up a fish tank and build on that fish tank, and, you know, give something, because they've actually shown that you look at a fish tank, you get the same positive effect as if you pet a dog, which is really interesting. So that's why if you see some behavioral health centers will have fish tanks in the lobby, and people will just watch it. And but I would say, you know, take your time, find something like a Go Fetch Wellness or someone that can really be like a coach for you, because there's a lot of responsibility that goes into animal ownership. It's not just cost of training, food, supplies, medical, but it's also, how active are you, and do you want to take this on? And, try volunteering. I set people up with volunteer communities. You can foster animals. So there's so many other ways to introduce yourself to the human-animal connection before getting your own animal. And remember, it does not have to be a service animal in order for you to have amazing benefits. And I think Joe shared that, or maybe you can share some more.
Well, a few years ago when I got out of the hospital, I started walking dogs for a local shelter too. So I had my dog at home, but then it gave me like another sense of responsibility, and you're helping. And when you help others, it really helps you find a piece of yourself that might have been missing. But what I wanted to ask before you go is, let's say hypothetically that I wanted to get a dog. Hypothetically, I know right now, and monetarily and time wise, I don't really have, I can't get a dog right now, but when I'm ready, what are the steps that I need to take to get a service dog?
So now you're wanting to get a service dog. You're wanting to get a dog that travels with you into stores, into restaurants. Are you wanting to get what a lot of people want, which is an emotional support animal that can stay with you and no pets housing and that can fly with you? That's very brief kind of definitions of both of them. But a service dog is trained to do work or tasks to mitigate a disability. So if you realize
probably support dog, I'd say, but either one, how would I go about that? Could I go to Go Fetch Wellness? Certainly you could go to Go Fetch Wellness, and the way we work is, we set up a consultation and get kind of all that information that I was touching on and help set up what I call an animal wellness team, or in this case, a dog wellness team, which means, treating mental health professionals, therapists, psychiatrists, as well as people on the dog side, trainers, behaviorists, shelters. But really what you said you got out of the hospital, you started walking dogs, those are all great first steps. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to start calling breeders and finding this $5,000 dog that's, trained, that's parents or generations of service dogs. Cause I think that's where people get confused. It's start getting around animals and in whatever way that means. And if there's even a local person that always is walking their dog, say, can I walk with you, and just ask you some questions, what it's like to have a dog, and start doing your research that way. And then by doing that, I think that a lot of people will find, this is for me, or no, I hate picking up dog poop. There's a poop talk again, which is, it's a true thing. I mean, some people really will not ever do it. And that's why you get a cat, I guess, in that case.
I don't know, cat litter. I mean, we could have another discussion about that too.
Yeah.
Would you rather?
I would rather
titles for this video.
Yeah, I know. Right.
But yeah, so, just try to make I want to set people up for success, because I think that a lot of people that come to me, like we've had, tough journeys. And so success is important. So just getting another dog and hoping that for the best and, white knuckling it is not usually the best method.
Right.
I hear you. Jeff Fink, you've been amazing. I'm so excited to meet you now and see you radiating what you know to be true. It's really amazing. Any closing thoughts for you, Joseph?
No, Jeff, thank you very much. And I can't wait to meet you in November. And hopefully I'll be in touch soon, about getting a dog. And
I hope that
and we'll talk more.
When you guys actually meet, and when Joseph meets Earl, that, I can only imagine that dog is going to get so much double love due to your golden retriever fetish.
I might take him.
I know. I'm a little worried about it.
You can take him, or you can join us for walks in the cold mornings.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Yeah, and it will be.
Yeah.
That sounds great, God. I look forward to seeing a picture on my counterpane.
It'll be there.
Definitely.
All right, guys.
Well,
thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.